All right, let's get this webinar started. Hello everybody, my name is Zach Evans, founder of Piano University, and I hope you're having an awesome week because today we're going to discover how to absolutely dominate any scale you're learning with just 10 minutes a day of practice and zero frustration. Now, a lot of people have these problems with scales. A lot of people's scales they're kind of choppy and uneven. A lot of times they're really tough to get hands together. You might have hands separate fine, but it's tough getting that other hand in. And a lot of people, they say they feel kind of stuck. And I know that exact feeling where you're just on that plateau and it seems like the harder you practice, the more stuck you are and the less results and the worse your scales get. So we're going to cover all those issues and exactly how to solve them. And the biggest thing, the one thing I want you to get out of this webinar, if nothing else, and it's the solution to these problems, is that you need what I call a piano scale workout plan, right? It has to be a systematic series of exercises to develop your scales, not just repeat your scales over and over. That's a very slow method of learning. It's in the long run, it's not going to drill in scales the way you want them to. You want a workout plan, and it's what I call P90Xing your scales sometimes. Now, if you don't know the workout program P90X, we're going to use a similar technique to piano scales as what they use in P90X, and we'll go over that in a little bit. All right, make sure you stick around to the end. At the end of the video, we're going to talk about the entire overview, piano scales mastery, the total plan, and how to get it. We're going to talk about the single biggest mistake every beginner piano player makes when it comes to scales. And I've taught tons of students, and literally 90%, and that's not an exaggeration, literally 9 out of 10 beginners make this mistake. And if you do everything right that I'm about to teach you, every single thing except you make this mistake, nothing works. It's like the weak link in the chain. I'm going to go over it exactly how to avoid that, and it's pretty simple to avoid once you know what it is. And I'm also going to give away a couple bonuses at the end, a couple free PDF cheat sheets, and I have a special deal going on too for an ebook that I'm selling. So I also have that, but there's a ton of stuff in this webinar anyway. All right, so to get the most out of this webinar, now I've taken a lot of webinars before, and I realized there's certain things that I did to get more out of webinars, whatever that webinar is teaching. First thing, go to a piano if possible. If you're not near a piano, don't worry about it. Just promise me you'll go to one later. But the sooner you apply everything I'm teaching, the sooner you can actually physically plunk down at the piano and practice everything, the sooner you're going to get results. If you literally watch this webinar 1,000 times and you never practice any of it, none of these techniques are going to work. So you want to get to a piano really as soon as possible. Step 2, turn off that cell phone. I know that whenever I'm watching any kind of learning, environment, if I have my cell phone on, I'm going to check Instagram, I'm going to check Snapchat. I love Snapchat, and I'm not going to focus during any of it. So, in fact, I would almost even, if you can, go put your cell phone in another room. If you're really serious about getting results with your piano scales and learning from this webinar. Step 3, close all your tabs. If you have Facebook open in one tab and this open in another tab, and this YouTube video of a baby kitten doing a backflip in the other, you're not going to pay attention. I do it all the time. Close out all those tabs, full screen this video, and let's get piano scales your 100% attention so we can really just take care of this aspect of your piano playing. That's what I want to do for you. I also want to say, if you're watching this right now on the live webinar, the only downside is I can only use one camera angle because I don't know how to set it up with multiple camera angles, but I do have another camera running right now. It's going to give a top-down view at the piano. So I'm going to have the replay up as well. So if you're watching this on YouTube or on my website or something as the replay, don't worry, I have a bunch of different camera angles. I'll do some fancy-pantsy video editing, to get more stuff in there for you guys, and I'll try to make the audio a little better. But if you're watching it live, I'm just letting you know that that's going to be out there. All right, let's get started. If you can hear me, if you're ready, if you've done all those things, go ahead in the question box and just type in excited to show me that, we're ready to go, ready to start the webinar. All right, got a couple of these in. Looks like people can hear me. Looks like everything's good to go. All right, 102. First thing I want you to do, Remember this number. We're going to come back to it later. The number 102. It relates to what we're going to talk about. All right. So it's no secret. Scales are extremely important. A lot of people don't know why. So real quick, I'm just going to, before we get into the, tactics and strategies, I want to just go over why they're important and why it's so critical to learn them. The biggest thing is getting that, what I like to call the at-home feel on the keys. Some people play and they look like they're not even trying. They look so comfortable. You know what I mean? Like it's not, and then you start to play, if you're a beginner, and you just feel awkward, right? You feel like you're telling your finger to do something and it's not doing it. And I remember I used to think it just meaned that I needed to practice a song more. But now that I've gone through, the fire, I realize it's just like my finger strength, dexterity, all that stuff isn't there yet. And no matter how much I practice this one song, it's just my technique's not there. I'm never going to get that at-home feel on the keys until you learn all your scales and really drill them in and get that technique solid. Now I gotta say, scales is one of a series of exercises that will develop, surefire, solid, rock solid technique. But it, in my opinion, is the number one, and I think most piano teachers will agree. There's also arpeggios, there's octaves, there's drills like the finger gauntlet. That one's really good for finger independence, right? But scales is the number one. If you don't learn anything else but scales, you'll be at least on the right track. All right. It's also the quickest way to master different keys. What I mean by this is, let's say you're trying to learn, okay, what are the notes in D major? Because I'm going to play a song in D major. I want to know where the sharps and flats are. Now you can go get flashcards and memorize them that way. And then, intellectually, you'll have an idea what the keys are, but it's not very practical because you have to think of what the key is in your mind and then you have to apply it to the keyboard. Now, when you go through all your scales and you master them, what happens is, let's say you're playing a song in F sharp, you'll instantly be able to know, okay, in F sharp, these are the sharps and flats. If I'm in D major, it's F sharp and C sharp. I can literally see it on the keyboard because I played that scale time and time again. That repetition builds it in. So it's almost like a music theory tool as well as a technique tool. And the last thing, this is one thing that's pretty much every teacher is going to preach scales. I've only come across a few teachers in my life. There's some aspects of piano that are kind of disagreed upon, right? I think that 90% of students will benefit more from playing by ear than sight reading. That's one of my things. There's a lot of people that disagree with me on that. The playing by ear versus sight reading is kind of a split camp among teachers. Piano scales is pretty much unified. In the piano universe, the pianoverse, pretty much everybody, all the teachers are like, yeah, scales are important. If you dominate your scales, your technique's going to be awesome. So it's one of those things that it's just worth it to put in the time, master them, and get your technique to that next level. All right, I want you to think what would happen if you could develop a routine to dominate any scale with 10 minutes a day of practice. And what I mean by that is right? You know in your mind that if you do this routine for 10 minutes a day, there's no wild cards. Your scale will be good by the end of the week. You know that in your head. That's what I want to help you develop so you can have that confidence. And it's very motivating as well when you know you're going to get results. And that's what I want to help you try to do. All right. So before I get started on the actual strategies, I want to tell you what I tried first, why it didn't work, and why you have to use strategies like the ones I'm going to discuss. All right, so when I first, started learning scales, teachers would tell me, just practice more. I hate that answer. Is it true? Yeah, of course you need to just practice more. But you don't need to just practice more. You need to practice more in a certain way. You know what I mean? It's not just repeat the scales 1,000 times and then you'll have them. That you can do it that way. It's going to take a long time. You're going to drill in some bad habits, and trust me, it's not the easiest path from point A to point B. I tried also the random YouTube strategy approach, whereas you look up a bunch of videos on YouTube, right? You might get one video. It might be right, it might be wrong. You're not really sure. You might try it out for 2 weeks. It doesn't help your scale. So then you try another one. Maybe this other video is correct, but maybe you're not at that level yet. Maybe this is a technique for more advanced players. So and I was trying to piece together all these random YouTube strategies. Some worked, some didn't, some worked, but I was not at the right level for them. I want to give you an integrated system, right? A system of strategies that you don't have to go all over YouTube looking for different ways. I just want to give you one thing that works. Not 100 things that kind of work, one thing, one system that works really well. That's my goal throughout this. When I did it that way, it led to a lot of choppy, uneven scales because I wasn't using a certain thumb technique that I'm going to talk to you guys in a bit. And yeah, just don't make the same mistakes I did. Hands together was a nightmare. It was, even when I got my hands separate decent, hands together was tough. And I spent a really long time trying to learn every scale. I don't want you to make the same mistakes. Now, here's why it didn't work. My teacher didn't teach me how to practice growing up. And she was a great teacher, and I think a lot of piano teachers mean well, but there is something missing within the piano teacher market where teachers will teach you what to do, but not how to do it. Here's what I mean. They'll tell you, okay, a C major scale. They'll tell you the notes. They'll tell you the fingerings, but that's it. And then they'll just say, well, you got to practice it a lot. So what do? You sit down, you go at home, you sit down at your piano, and you say, okay, do I practice right hand first and then left hand, or do I just start hands together? Do I play it fast right away, or do I start it slow? Do I play it 10 times in a row, or do I play right hand 10 times and left hand? There is no specific when I sit down at the piano, here is what I do. And that's so critical. I mean, that's like you spend all your time practicing and you don't even know if you're practicing correctly. I think it's one of the big things that the piano industry is missing, and I want to teach you that. I want to teach you, okay, this strategy, when you sit down at the piano, this is exactly what you do. There is no wiggle room. There is no maybe this won't work because I'm not doing it right. I want you to be sure that you're doing it 100% correctly. All right, another thing. We all have 24 hours in a day. There isn't one person in the history of the universe that has 25 hours, and we're all busy. I get it. You got school, or you got work, or you got kids. You got so much stuff to do. The answer is not always practicing more. The answer is practicing better. The answer is that 10-minute block that you've carved out for practicing your scales. You want to get more results out of that 10-minute block. You don't want to get decent results out of a 30-minute block. You want to get every second of that 10 minutes is being spent moving you forward as fast as possible. And we're going to talk about that later. So what you need is a routine. You need these strategies, you need tactics, you need specific exercises designed to accomplish a specific goal. And this is what I'm talking about, P90X. Now, if you don't know P90X, it's a very successful workout routine. Basically what they do is instead of just saying, do push-ups every day, they'll mix it up. The first day you might do normal push-ups. The second day you might do push-ups, but they're close grip, right? Third day you might do push-ups, but your feet are up on a chair, so your body's angled like this, and you're doing push-ups. And what's critical, they call it muscle confusion. And what it does is it hits your muscles from every different angle. So like your muscles have to respond because you're hitting them from every different angle and making them learn. Now with piano skills, we want to do the exact same thing. We want to hit it from every different practice angle we can. And that's how you drill it in solid. So it's not kind of like half there, half not there. We just beat it into submission with different angles and hit it from every angle so it will be just rock solid. All right, so let's get on to the kind of meat of it. Here's what you need to do in 4 steps. Step 1, you need to learn the practice accelerator strategies. That's just a cool term I made up for how you practice. The strategies you use to practice. I think it sounds cooler though, so I like saying that. Kind of hypes people up too sometimes. Then you need a systematic practice routine. Okay, so now we have all these strategies. How do we develop a routine that encompasses these strategies? What days of the week do I practice this strategy? What level of development do I practice this strategy? That kind of stuff. We'll go over that. How to avoid that biggest mistake. Remember, if you're making this mistake, nothing else is going to work. I don't care how hard you practice. And 4-step practice. You need to commit. 10 minutes a day. I'm begging you, just do this for a week. Because if you do it for a week, you will get the results. Once you know you can get the results, it'll be that much more motivating to go on next week. But I want you to commit. And no, that doesn't mean practice 6 hours one day and none the rest of the week. It doesn't count. You can't, forget one day and then practice 20 minutes a second day. It's not the same. You need every day 10 minutes, every single day. That's what I'm asking from you. Small commitment if you want to really take your piano skills to the next level. All right, let's get on to it. Step one is the practice strategies themselves. Now I'm going to move over to the piano so we have this overhead mic going. All right, so the first strategy is called the quick thumb technique. Now you might have heard this if you've taken the PSH course or some of my other courses, but even if you have, I think it's a good idea to kind of reiterate it and make sure you're still practicing it correctly. So here's what happens. Here's one of the biggest causes of sloppy, uneven piano scales. What beginners do is they play the first three notes. Look, we're just going to do C major because it's easy. So C major scale, they play the first three notes. And then the fourth note, it gets awkward. Right? Their scales sound like that. It's good up until that weird thumb part. And then it gets really choppy because it's that weird thumb under thing. The reason that happens is because beginners play the first three notes. Now look where your thumb is. Way over at this C. It has to get from the C all the way over to this F. So now it has to be this big jump. And it's difficult to do, You want your thumb to be closer to this F right away, so you don't have to do this big jump over. So what you do is you need to tuck your thumb under as you're playing the D and the E, right? So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, and now look where your thumb is. Now you might not be able to see it with the camera angle, but it's right above this F because you've tucked it under your fingers. So it's going to actually tuck under. I don't know if you can see that, just like this. Now I know some of you are going to go in the comments and you're going to say, this is wrong. There's the thumb over technique of playing. Yes, there is a thumb over technique. This is not a beginner technique. You want to start with the thumb under technique. And then later, as your scales get faster and faster, naturally you'll be able to transition into thumb over technique. I'm not going to go into that now. That's kind of an advanced technique. But for now, tuck it under. Now what I tell you before, I'm not going to teach you just how to do it. I'm going to teach you how to practice specifically. Okay, so when you sit down at the piano, actually, here's what you need to do. First step, play the first two notes. That's it. Let's just niche down on these first two notes, C and D. And all I want you to do is practice moving your thumb under at the same time you're pressing down that D, right? So it's going to look like this. Thumb under, right? Do that 8 times. The next one is going to be the first 3 notes. I only did it 3 times, but do it 8 times. Then it's going to be C, D, E. C, D, E. Right? Tuck that thumb. Now it's going to feel awkward at first. It's going to feel weird. But once you do it enough times, probably 2 or 3 days, it'll start to feel normal. And then you do 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? And your thumb should be right above that F before you play it because it's tucked under. Just like that. Do this slow enough so it's easy. Don't worry about speed. All we're doing is practicing this quick thumb technique. That's it. That's strategy number 1. Now, obviously, you want to practice it with your left hand too. So you're going to do, 1, 2, and then eventually 1, 2, 3, 4 to get that thumb under for your left hand too. But for now, I'm just going to teach you the right hand, and we're going to go over the more overview later. Oh, one quick thing before I forget. So right now I'm teaching all the strategies. Maybe you're thinking, okay, how do I even know this guy's legit? He's actually a good piano player. I'm going to put a link below to my other YouTube channel, and there's literally a video of me playing all 12 major scales, fast, 4 octaves, so you can kind of decide for yourself. I just want to make sure, I'm not trying to brag or anything. I just want to make sure that okay, this guy that's teaching me, he actually knows his stuff. He didn't just read this in a book and is teaching me. He actually went through the strategies, didn't know how to play scales, used these strategies, now he can play scales, right? That's the only reason. Okay, let's get back to it. So that's strategy number 1 is the quick thumb technique. Strategy number 2 is called practicing in rhythms. And if you've taken any of my courses, you might have heard these before. This is my go-to. This is my number one. Like, this will drill almost anything in. You don't just use it for scales, you use it for a ton of different things, but it's a great way to practice it with scales as well. Now this one's gonna take a little longer. Here's how it works. There's 4 different rhythms you're gonna practice in. It hits the scale at a slightly different angle every time, and when you put them all together, eventually it kind of hits every aspect of the scale individually. Here's how it works. First, you're gonna play it 2 times normal, slowly. So just play the scale. And just be super accurate, 2 times slowly. Next, you're gonna play it 4 times using rhythm number 1. Now, rhythm number 1 goes like this. It's long, short, long, short, long, short, long. It's gonna sound like this. All right, that's 1 rep. You're gonna do it 4 times. So you're gonna do it again. Right, and then you're gonna do it twice, you're gonna do it 3 times, 4 times. Rhythm number 2, now we move on to, we're gonna do this one 4 times as well. It's the opposite of that. It's long, short, long, short, long. It's gonna sound like this. You're gonna do that 4 times. Number 3. This rhythm is where it starts getting a little trickier. You might have to clap this rhythm out first before you play it. You're gonna have to play it slow if you're a beginner and you haven't had, much work with rhythms, but it goes like this. Long, short, 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 long, short, 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 long. So it's gonna sound like this. Long, short, 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 long, short, 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 long, short, 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 long, short, short. I'll do that one more time for you guys. Long, short, 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 long, short, 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 long, short, 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 long, short, short. All right, you're gonna do that 4 times. And the last one you're gonna do is gonna be short, 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 long, short, 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 long, short, 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 long. Sounds like this. Short, 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 long, short, 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 long, short, 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 long, short, short, short. Just like that. Now, when you're practicing it at first, you might have to go slower. You might be able to go faster. The key is you got to be disciplined and stay accurate and use the correct fingerings. I'm going to talk about fingerings later. I'm going to give you a cheat sheet PDF at the end of this video. But you have to use the correct fingerings and you have to be accurate with everything. All right, so you do slow twice, each of the rhythms 4 times each, and then you do 2 more times the normal scale slow. All right, so I'm just gonna recap that real quick. This is a little bit longer of a routine. So it's 2 times, play the scale normal, slow, 4 times using the first rhythm, long, short, long, short, long, then 4 times using the second rhythm, short, long, short, long, short, long, 4 times using the third rhythm, long, short, 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 long, short, 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 long, 4 times using the fourth rhythm, short, 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 long, short, 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 long, and then 2 more times normal, slow tempo. At the end of this video, I'll give you guys a PDF cheat sheet that has, everything on it, all the different strategies on it. So you can get it. I'll show you where to get it then. But anyway, so now we have 2 strategies, right? We have the quick thumb, and then we have the rhythm strategy. Again, with the rhythms, you're going to do it with your left hand too, just like anything else. All right, 3rd strategy, metronome ramp up. This is what this solves. The metronome ramp up solves a problem where you can play a scale slow, but when you try to speed it up, it gets sloppy, it gets choppy, it gets uncoordinated. Now, the reason for that is people try to go from 0 to 100 right away. Not going to work. Your fingers aren't ready for that yet. So the metronome ramp up, what it does is it takes your scale from a very slow tempo and gradually and systematically works it up to a higher tempo. Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna first get a metronome. Now my metronome just ran out of batteries, so I'm gonna use a online metronome. I actually don't recommend using an online one because you're gonna get distracted. When you're practicing, don't have your computer nearby, unless you're practicing video lessons. If you are, try to full screen them. Don't have your phone with the metronome app. You're gonna go on Instagram. You know my opinion on this, but anyway, I'll just show you how it works. So set it to a slow tempo first. You might have to go let's go even slower. You need a slow tempo that's just ridiculously easy for you to play, right? Where you're never gonna make a mistake at this tempo. And just play it 4 times at this tempo, so. Boom, that's 1. You do it 4 more times. Next, you bump the tempo up between 8 and 15 BPM. Here we go. It's slightly faster. Then you bump it up 8 to 15 BPM again, play it again, 4 times. Bump it up again, play it again 4 times. So basically you're playing 4 times, and 8 to 15 BPM, the reason I choose that is that's when our brain kind of like barely notices a difference, right? It can notice that there's a difference in speed, but it can barely even process it. So it doesn't seem any faster, it won't freak you out, and you can gradually speed them up. Now eventually you will hit a point, what I call your max tempo, where you start making mistakes, right? Up until that point, you were playing it without mistakes. They were smooth, they weren't choppy. Once you hit that point where you're starting to make mistakes, what you need to do is focus, 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 and try as hard as you can to play it 4 times smoothly, no mistakes. Now you might not be able to do this. That might be your max tempo for the day. If it is, that's fine, but you have to try to push yourself a little bit past your comfort zone. Now the most important thing is after you practice that last one 4 times where you start making mistakes, you stop, you go back to a slow tempo, and you play it 4 more times slowly. And this is huge because if you don't do this, your body's going to remember that sloppy fast playing, right? And it's going to drill in sloppy habits. Now originally I would say, okay, never practice sloppy, but you're going to have to push yourself because otherwise you'll never know where your boundaries are. So you have to push yourself a little past, but you have to make sure you come back and at the end play it nice and slow, perfect. Just be, you want to just be looking at your fingers like every single hit is your baby, and you're gonna care for it like it's your kid, and you're gonna make them perfect. All right, so just to recap that one, start at a super slow tempo, play it 4 times. Bump the tempo up 8 to 15 BPM, play it 4 times. Bump it up again, 4 times. Then eventually you're gonna hit your max tempo, the point where you start making mistakes. That's when you really focusing, you dig in, and you try as hard as you can to hit that tempo. Maybe you'll hit it, maybe you won't. But either way, after that time, you go back to the slow tempo, play it again 4 more times. All right, let's go back to the computer now, and I'm going to tell you about now we have these strategies, the quick thumb, the rhythms, the metronome ramp up. Let's talk about how to accumulate these into an overall practice workout routine. All right, step 2, develop a routine. So here's an example routine. This is not necessarily going to be your routine, but it's an example of what you would plan out. Now, I'd love to say that I have the perfect routine and you have to do this many of this many of this. But the problem with that is all of you watching this are at different levels of piano. And also for some of you, you'll find one strategy that just gets buckets. And every time you use it, you just see crazy results. And others of you will have a different strategy that really, really works for you. But all these strategies will work for you to some extent. So you're going to have to design your own routine. Let me give you an example of what a 10-minute routine weekly might look like. So you take out your calendar, Monday. Monday you might do hands separate, quick thumb, and the rhythm strategy, right? You do the quick thumb strategy, right hand, quick thumb strategy, left hand. Then you do the rhythms, right hand, rhythms, left hand. You see if that takes about 10 minutes. Tuesday, hands separate, metronome ramp up. So now you take your right hand, you do the whole metronome ramp up, And the metronome ramp up takes a lot longer than the other two. You'll notice that once you start actually putting this into practice. And then you do left hand metronome ramp up, you're done for the day. Wednesday, hands together rhythms. Now you've got each hand drilled in separately well. So now you put the hands together, you run the rhythms. You run the 4 rhythms. Thursday, hands together, you run the metronome ramp up. Friday, hands separate, the thumb under isolation. Now this is another strategy I haven't talked about in this. I'll tell you how to get it later. But this is just a strategy. It's basically like the quick thumb strategy, but takes it to another level. If you want your thumb under to just be like almost the best part of your scale, like that's even more comfortable than the rest of the scale. I'll talk about that later. Saturday, hands together, add a note strategy. That's another strategy I have that I didn't tell you about yet. But this is an example of a routine you might have. Now notice you always start with hands separate. And in fact, even if I learn a new scale, even if I think I could put hands together the first day, never do hands together. I have this rule for myself, and the reason is to make sure and keep me from being sloppy. If you practice hands separate, then sleep on it, and then come back the next day, like the scale, I don't know how to explain it other than it's in a different part of your brain, right? It goes to a deeper part of your brain once you sleep on it and wake up the next day. And I know that sounds weird and maybe like woo-woo voodoo kind of stuff, but I highly suggest practicing only hands separate the first day. A lot of times the first couple days or even 3 days if it's a tough scale for you. But don't bring in hands together too quickly. And then you want to just, pick different strategies. And one thing I want to make sure you guys know is the first time you do this, you're going to do it wrong. And what I mean by that is you're going to either pick too many strategies or you're going to go hands together too fast, and that's fine. This is not a rigid routine. This is a flexible one that you have to learn how it works for you. So for example, the first week, maybe you use this strategy right here. You go on to hands together on Wednesday and you figure out I am not ready for hands together. I'm not at that level yet. So then you say, okay, no big deal. Next time I do this routine, next week when I do it, I'm going to do 3 days of hands separate, right? Or you might figure out, okay, Monday I said I was going to do hands separate, quick thumb and rhythms, but that took me 45 minutes because I'm still practicing it really slow. So then for next time, okay, Monday, maybe I can only do, rhythms hands separate and can't do the quick thumb method as well. And you'll get the hang of it. One big thing too, it has nothing to do with piano, but everything to do with how you learn. Use a count up timer, like a stopwatch or something. I don't know how to explain it other than it just makes you more focused. It makes you more motivated when you say, okay, the next 10 minutes, all I'm going to do is drill in these scales no matter what happens. You press the start button, you put it on a piano, and those next 10 minutes you are dedicated to doing scales. Now, why don't I use a countdown timer? Sometimes when you're practicing your scales, you'll go into the zone, is what I call it. And we've all been there, that time when you're practicing and you just get lost in practice and you're just so focused and you're just on point and you're learning so fast. Now, when that happens, you don't want to be interrupted, right? You don't want a countdown timer where that 10-minute beeper goes off and you lose your focus, you get out of the zone. When you're in the zone, stay in there as long as you can. Get as much practicing done because you learn so much faster when you're in the zone. And you can't just always make yourself get into it. So if you do get into it, it's like, you got to run this thing for what it's worth. You know what I mean? If you practice, I practice sometimes like 45 minutes and I kind of blink and then check my stopwatch and it's been 45 minutes. And I'm like, well, it's one of those things. And I'm sure that happens to you all the time too. So definitely use a count up timer. Second thing, make scales the first thing you do in your practice routine. Always. I don't care if you wake up, you brush your teeth, and you do scales. Do scales first. Couple reasons for this. One, it's a great warm-up. It's a phenomenal warm-up. Two, I really think technique is the single biggest thing for beginners. You can say, playing expressively, but the thing is, if you don't have the technique, you might be thinking expressively, but your fingers won't be able to carry it out because you don't have that coordination, you don't have that dexterity, you don't have that confidence on the keys. I really do believe technique is number one. Make it a habit to every day when you sit down to practice, do scales first. Third part, we're going to talk about setting goals. So don't try to learn all 12 scales at once. I want you to pick one scale a week, right? I heard this saying, it's if you chase two rabbits, shoot, I don't know what the saying is. It's like if you chase two rabbits, you're not going to catch any rabbits, right? Because if you chase this one, then chase this one, and chase this one, you're never going to get anywhere. So pick one rabbit or one scale for 1 week. That's all you do is C major, right? Week 1, all you do is C major, drill that baby in, drill that sucker in, and then week 2, you go on another scale. And guess what? It will be in no time. I mean, if you do all 12 scales, that's 12 weeks, that's 3 months. If you could say, I will have solid technique in 3 months, 10 minutes a day, would you say yes to that? Shoot, I would. I think that's a good deal. So don't try to do 12 at once. Just pick one scale a week. And that brings me to, let me ask you a question. And this is kind of interesting. And hopefully it motivates you to do your scales even more. It's going to sound kind of weird, but it relates, trust me. In the first 5 years, I want to ask you, McDonald's only had one store in the first 5 years of existence. Now, in the next 6 years, how many stores did it open? Now, the answer to this, I actually gave it to you earlier in the webinar. 102 stores. Isn't that crazy? The first year, it's one store. In almost the same time period, it opened up 102 stores. Now, this is what in business they call scaling a business, right? And here's why it happened like that. The first McDonald's restaurant, they had to learn what worked, right? Maybe they first started out trying to sell a lot of chicken nuggets, and all their advertising chicken nuggets. Then they realized everybody's buying the Big Mac, right? So then they start advertising, they put all their advertising into the Big Mac, and it starts working. You know, you have to figure out pricing, you gotta figure out what works, TV ads or radio ads. But once you have that formula that works, now when you open up your second store, you go to San Francisco, you open up location number 2, it's super easy. You have the formula. You might have to tweak it slightly because San Francisco might be a little bit different than, Nashville, but it's going to be for the most part the same formula. And then the third store is going to be even easier, and the fourth is even easier. Here's how this works with scales. And I know this seems like it doesn't relate, but let me tell you how it does. So the first week, let's say you learn C major. You learn that really well. And the next week, you're learning G major. Let's notice something about these scales. The first 6 notes are all white notes. That means they're the same exact distance apart, which means when you drill in the muscle memory for C major, that exact same muscle memory can be used for G major. So really when you learn G major, you're only really learning 2 new notes. That's it. And all you have to learn is 2 notes. So even if that first week you're kind of struggling and you're like, I kind of have C major, but I don't have it 100%, don't worry about it. Go on to week 2, practice G major. G major will be much easier. And by the end of the week, you'll probably have mastered G major. And the best part, you go back to C major and you practice it, and all of a sudden, without even practicing C major any more days, you'll realize it's gotten a lot better. Why? Because the entire time you're practicing G major, you're still practicing those 6 notes. You're further internalizing that muscle memory. So on C major is going to be better. Now you go to D, right? Well, that's just like G major, the same muscle memory. They have that one black note, except D major also has one more black note. Okay, you're learning one more note. So I want to try to impress upon you that it's not a linear learning curve when it comes to scales. It's exponential, right? It's hard at first, but once you kind of hit that click point, you'll go up and up and up. And you'll learn which strategies really, really work for you and which ones can accelerate your progress. All right, now let's go over this biggest mistake, because you can do everything right I've taught you. You can do all the strategies. You can do all this stuff. But if you get this mistake wrong, you will not learn your scales fast, no matter if you do everything else right. And then after this, I'm going to go into some bonuses, your free PDF sheets, and stuff like that. So what is this biggest mistake? Sloppy practice. Now, there's 2 huge reasons for sloppy practice, okay? Sloppy practice, it's when you use the wrong fingering. That's wrong. Yeah, it sounded like a C major scale, but I use my 4th finger on F. That's wrong. If you do sloppy where, choppy, if you play the wrong notes, that's sloppy. What I realized is every time you practice something sloppy, you are literally getting worse at piano, right? You're not staying the same, you're getting worse because you're drilling in the wrong habit. You're literally learning to do the wrong thing. And what I realized is a lot of beginners, especially with fingering, I noticed is if I'm in a lesson, I'll be like, play a C major scale. They'll play it right the first time. Second time, they don't concentrate. They lose their focus and they play an F with 4. Now what happens is, now later when you try to speed your scales up, your brain's learned two things. It's learned play F with fourth finger and play F with your thumb. So when you get to that E, your brain freaks out because it has two different things and it doesn't know which way to go. So you really have to kind of unlearn that bad habit and then relearn the right habit. It's going to take you even longer. Okay, so what I'm telling you is learn it right the first time. Never go faster than you can. If you think you can go fast, don't go fast until it's perfectly accurate at the last tempo. You know what I'm saying? Also, don't try to do hands together too early. I used to do this I still do this sometimes because I know it's exciting. It sounds cooler with hands together. But if you don't have hands separate good, you're not going to be able to hands together good. You're going to play it sloppy. You're going to drill in bad habits and you're going to get worse at piano. One other big mistake is people, they do hands together and they think that they can do it at the same speed they did hands separate. Let's say you have hands separate at this speed. You cannot play hands together at that speed. Your brain is now going to try to do two separate things at the same time at the same speed. No way. You have to cut your speed in half to be able to have enough mental capacity at the time to play those scales accurately if it's your first time trying to play at that tempo. So you're going to have to be, you're going to have to be playing at that tempo when you go to hands together. So that's the one thing I'm just like, please, please, please focus, 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 and don't do sloppy. Practice. Hands separate first, slow down, use the same fingering every time. One thing, how I like to think of it sometimes, I call it monk practice. I want you to picture, like a monk, right? Imagine a monk pouring tea. He doesn't grab the tea, slosh it in the cup. He grabs the tea very slowly and controlled. He picks it up and he pours it in the tea glass and he sets it down, right? I want you to have that same mindset when you're practicing scales. Every single note is your baby and you are going to care for it as well as you can. You are going to focus on every single note of the scale. Make everyone perfect. Quality over quantity. Be a quality practicer. Don't be a quantity practicer. And I apologize if you guys know any monks out there. I'm sure my rendition of a monk is probably not accurate, but it does help you get in that mindset, if you know what I mean. All right, let's quick recap, and then we're going to go over the free PDFs and the bonuses. All right, we learned the practice accelerator strategies. Those were the quick thumb, the metronome ramp up, and the rhythms technique. Then we talked about how to develop a systematic practice routine, right? That's where it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Is it hands together? Is it hands separate? What strategies am I using? We talked about the biggest mistake. Never, never, never practice sloppy. Always perfect practice. Step 4, obviously practice. You need to commit 10 minutes a day. All right, now let's talk about the next thing. Now, this will help you. This routine I told you will help you a ton. If you want to just really maximize and take even to the next level, I don't have time, obviously, in this webinar to go through every single practice strategy, but I do have an ebook. It's called Lightning Fast Piano Scales. It has a PDF in it, Piano Scales Mastery, which shows you the entire process to learn. There's actually 3 phases. It goes into all of those. There's even more, like I showed you 3 practice strategies, but there's even more just like that. It has, like I said, the 3 phases. So there's actually certain practice strategies that work really well in some phases, and they still work in the other ones, but they're just not optimized for the other ones. So you have to, first phase is you have to learn and memorize the scale. Second phase is you have to speed it up. Third phase is expanding it, getting it from 1 octave to 2 octaves to 3 octaves to 4 octaves. I talk about the correct form motion. I don't have time to go into that, but if you're playing really stiff and flat fingers, you're never going to get your scales fast. You could get them accurate at a slow tempo, but you need a certain wrist motion. It's a certain roll of the wrist. I go more in depth into that in the ebook. And I talk about how to expand to 4 octaves, like I said, and more. Okay, so right now, first, there's a couple free bonuses, and then I'm going to tell you about a couple bonuses you get if you end up deciding to purchase the ebook. So the bonuses you get all the major scale fingerings and the harmonic minor scale fingerings. There's going to be a link down below with the download page. I'm also going, I kind of forgot to put it on this slide, but I'm also going to give you a cheat sheet with all the strategies we learned today and exactly how to implement them. Yep, so I'll just put that in a link below. All right, now bonuses with the ebook. Now, if you do get the ebook, for anybody who's watched this far through the webinar, you're my kind of student, right? You're somebody who's dedicated, who's really excited to learn. You didn't get distracted. You didn't go on your phone. You actually sat through the whole thing, and I know you're going to actually practice this stuff. So I want to give you more than just the ebook. So with the ebook, the bonuses, you're first going to get the Ultimate Piano Cheat Sheets Pack. It has basically every PDF on my Piano University site. Everything from the major and minor chords, with it's highlighted, it has different PDFs that'll just help you out. You also get the Lightning Fast Piano Scales audiobook. I know a lot of people are like, I don't got time to read a book. Okay, but everybody has time when they're driving to work, doing dishes, working out, that you can at least listen to the audiobook, even if you don't have time to read the actual book. Then there's going to be a bonus video 1 you get, which is form and motion. So it's going to teach you that wrist technique I was talking about before. Bonus video 2, arpeggio mastery. So just like scales, there is a system to learn them. There's all these techniques. There's the same thing for arpeggios. The strategies are slightly different. They're modified because they work better. Since arpeggios are 3 notes, a 3-note cycle, they work better a little bit differently. So I'm going to go into those. Get a bonus video 3, octaves, these things. And I'm going to talk about how to correct octave technique and how to drill those in fast. Bonus video 4, tremolo mastery. Tremolos are just those, those things. I'm going to talk about the technique to get that fast kind of wrist wiggle. And you get a free chapter of my Supercharge Your Piano Practice ebook. Now that ebook is an ebook that I sell separately, and it basically has all those, like those strategies I taught you, the rhythms, metronome, all those. Those are good for scales, right? But there are strategies that teach other aspects of piano. For example, how to break down a piece and learn it systematically, how to memorize pieces fast. There's a bunch of strategies just like the ones I taught you, but that relate to entire pieces. And that's what that book goes into. But I'll give you a free chapter of it along with this deal, super bundle deal. So if you take everything into account, you get, if you purchase the ebook, you also get the audiobook, you also get the Ultimate Piano Cheat Sheets Pack. Video bonus 1, the scale, form, and motion video. You get the arpeggio technique video. You get the octave technique video. You get the tremolo technique video. You get a free chapter of Supercharge Your Piano Practice. The total value is $115. I'm not going to charge you $115. I'm going to charge you what I call Big Mac pricing. We talked about McDonald's today. I want to make this less than the price of a Big Mac meal at McDonald's. $4.99. That is, I probably shouldn't give that much of a deal. I'd probably make more money if I charge like $20 or something. But I really think like scales is one of those things. This is important stuff. I want to give it away cheap. So you get all those bonuses and the ebook just $4.99. There's a link below. bestpianoclass.com/scale bonus. Or you can just go to the link right beneath this video. And it's 100% risk-free like every other ebook or course I give on my site. For any reason in the next 60 days, you can always get your money back. Look, I run an honest piano business. Yes, I do want to make a living off of it. That's obviously my goal. But also, I would feel guilty as ever if I sold something and it didn't get results for you. So if you didn't like it, if it didn't get results, just email me within 60 days, Zach@bestpianoclass.com. And I'll just shoot you your money back. You get your $5 back. So there's no risk on you. Go here to get it. bestpianoclass.com/scale bonus. Link is down below. All right, here's what to do. So you're going to go to this website for the ebook and bonuses. You're going to click, I don't know if it actually says get my book. It might say like purchase here or confirm order or something like that. You click the button, pay the $4.99, and you get your copy of the ebook plus all those bonuses I told you about. All right, so go ahead right now. Thanks for watching. My name is Zach Evans, and happy practicing and peace out.